Are you currently engaged, or do you feel yourself moving towards marriage soon? Well, in this episode, we're going to share some important lessons we learned during our engagement process, as well as 5 key things you and your spouse should do before saying I do. Let's go. Hey friends, welcome to the Marriage Inside Out podcast, where we teach couples how to become mission focused, learning to work together as a team to build a solid foundation for their household. I'm Khalil, and this is my lifelong bride, the lady of the house. Yes, you all may know her as AJ, but I call her Adrian. Yes, let's make some noise.
Hey guys.
Awesome. So we are in the heart of wedding season. It's summer. And this is, one of the grandest times of the year for a lot of couples out there. And so what we wanted to do was have an episode that is dedicated to those of you all out there listening who are on your way to tying the knot. We know how exciting of a time it can be. We know how challenging of a time it can be as well. And it's funny because as glorious as it is, or as it can be, preparing for your wedding and preparing for marriage, it can also be easy to get caught up in planning so much for the big day that you lose sight of the things that are truly of value and that are truly important. So, with that in mind, what we want to do is we want to share some tips that we believe will be helpful to those of you all out there before you walk down that aisle, before you tie the knot. So this is important. Yes. And so before we get into the tips, Wonder Woman, let's just share a little bit about our engagement story. We won't go into too many details, but just to give you all a synopsis. So we got engaged in, it was December of 2014. And we got married in August of 2015. And I shared that just to say that it was an 8-month period of engagement for us. We know that engagement periods vary by couple. Actually the average time length of engagement for most couples is 12 to 18 months. But for us, it was 8 months. I know for some people, it may be even shorter than that. Some people could be longer, but yes.
Yeah. And we learned so much in that 8 months. We were really diligent, did all of the things that are typically expected during engagement. Of course, we had premarital counseling. We had amazing virtual counseling throughout that time. We practiced our budgeting, putting our incomes together to see what that might look like later on. We made sure that we took time out to, of course, prepare for the wedding itself and what we wanted that to look like. And then we also, interestingly enough, didn't really know where we were going to live in August. So in addition to getting engaged right after Khalil's graduation with his PhD, that's when he proposed after the graduation ceremony, we were just walking by faith and trusting that the Lord would open up whatever door was necessary for us, and we were being diligent in the process. But it was definitely a lot of things happening in those 8 months.
Yeah, a lot of things indeed, because you got to think about it. In our case, we know everyone's case is and their story is different, but for us, we're in the process of planning a wedding. As you said, we were doing marriage counseling. I had just graduated with my doctorate degree, and I started working, having just kind of a temporary job.
Yeah.
My wife, you were working full-time.
While still working on my PhD at the time.
Yes.
And in my mind, I really wanted to get it done before the wedding. So I was adding all this extra pressure on myself.
Right. But we knew above all of that we wanted to transition.
Yeah.
We wanted to transition from where we were living in Auburn at the time. We just didn't know where right off.
No.
And so there's this interesting faith walk that we were going through during that time, which I think only made us stronger. You know, it's funny because people would ask us like, oh, where are you all going to be? What are you going to do? And, you know, long story short, I mean, we both applied for, you know, a few positions, but, you know, thankfully it was in June that, you know, we found out that I had gotten hired where, you know, I currently am working, and we found out we were moving to Florida.
Yes.
Like, okay,
Praise
amen,
the Lord.
thank you, Lord. But that was just 2 months before we got married. And so, you know, for some people that could have been a nail biting time, but I mean, really it was a great adventure. I think it's just a cool testimony that we have. And yeah, but you know, definitely so much that we did and learned during that time. And really that time made us better, I would say.
I agree. Wholeheartedly. I think without that time, there was a certain maturity that was built in us. And though we're going to share these tips, know that it was definitely a up and down journey, right? It wasn't like blissful the whole time, right? There were challenges. There were nights of tears and stretching and on our knees, you know, just really trying to figure out what things looked like. But we knew that we were purposed to be married. We wanted to grow together as one. And we really made that effort to communicate openly and effectively.
Right. And I would say out of everything that we did during that season, one of the most important things I feel like that we did was creating a set of marriage values and having some important conversations. For those of y'all, if you know, maybe you see there's a split second in our intro video where you see this picture of this, you know, image on the wall. That's in our bedroom. That's our set of marriage values. And so that was something that we created during our time of being engaged. We talked about, okay, what do we want to embody within our marriage? How do we want to behave, you know, towards one another? And that was really I would say a difference maker for us moving forward.
Exactly. And we actually are going to be providing workshop and resources to help you guys, if you desire to, just learn how we established our marriage values and be able to establish your own for your household as well.
Right. And through all of that, I mean, one thing I want to ask you is, looking back, is there anything that you would do differently if you had the chance, or
in the engagement time?
In the engagement time, yes.
I would say I don't think there's anything that I would change. It wasn't perfect. It was, like I mentioned, it was a very stretching time, but a very hopeful and joyous time altogether. And I think without that time, I don't believe we would be where we are now in our marriage. So I think being assured that our story is beautiful, our story is unique, just like your story is unique if you're here listening, and that there's so much purpose in that process. So I don't believe there would be anything that I would have changed, like made our engagement time longer or shorter or anything. No, I think it was perfectly designed.
Yeah, was what it was.
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree. I can't really think or pinpoint anything that I would say, oh, if we could go back and do this differently. Of course, there are always things that could be different, but the fact that what we went through gives us the story and the knowledge that we have now.
Exactly.
I wouldn't change that.
Yeah.
So let's get into these 5 key things. So we're going to share with you all now 5 key things that we believe you and your fiancé should do during your engagement period. And these are things that really have come from our own experience, as well as some of the things that we've observed within other couples. In case, you know, if you don't know us, we like to observe and just study other couples. I mean, that's part of just learning and growing, right? So these are things that we've come up with from our own experience, as well as from what we've seen others go through. So
the first is to protect your peace. And that looks like making sure that your heart is guarded. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to, maybe they already have just been talking noise and maybe distracting throughout the process. But at the end of the day, if you're on one accord with your spouse on what you desire to do, you know that your relationship's covered, if you will. And that's helped us so much, because you get 50 different opinions on how your wedding day should look, especially once you get the ring, right? As brides to be, right? Once you get the ring, you get that call from your mom and your mother-in-law to be and your best friend, and everyone has a thought on what that day should look like. But even if you feel overwhelmed, go back to that center. That is what truly matters, and that's what's going to sustain for your marriage.
Yeah, and also learning how to just say no.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
Of course.
Learn how to say no. That's part of protecting your peace, and that's even something that's important for when you're married too.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And number 2 is to embrace your story. Your unique story matters. And in this present season with the pandemic, if you are engaged right now, I know you might have a lot of different emotions. If you've decided to get married virtually, if you've decided to postpone the wedding for another time, there is no wrong decision in that process. We want to assure you of that. And we want to encourage you that your story will be exactly as it's supposed to be, the design. And that's something that we had to learn as well, because I know for me, scrolling through Pinterest and Instagram and learning all of these things, I felt very overwhelmed in terms of expectation on what the wedding day should look like. And as I went back to guarding my heart and us just conversing, we're like, okay, what are our must-haves? What do we really desire to make sure is there? And then it'd be great if it happens, but at the end of the day, we just had to let some things go, and that really helped us in terms of making sure that we were true to our own story.
Exactly. Be you.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you gotta keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, that's good. The third is to, as simple as it sounds, prepare for marriage. Mm-hmm. Yes, prepare for marriage. Remember, the wedding is a day, but marriage is for life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that can, be easily lost in the process, is you get so caught up preparing. And I mean, we planned our marriage, but, really I'm thankful that we had just good accountability to help us remember what exactly we were preparing for. It's funny, I think about a time when we went to a wedding during our time of being engaged, and it was for one of your friends. Mm-hmm. And during the reception, we were sitting at a table with some other couples, and there was another couple there who is, probably in their 40s or so. And we were having a conversation with them. We informed them that we would actually be getting married about, in another 3 to 4 months. And they were like, oh yeah, that's great. And then I remember the husband distinctly saying, he was like, you're already supposed to be married, right? And at first it was like, huh? But immediately right after, I understood what he meant. Mm-hmm. He basically was saying that although you're not actually married yet, you don't have the ring on the finger yet, but you should already have the mindset of marriage. And then he kind of expounded on that. He was like, you should already act like you're married before you are married. Yeah. And so, that's part of adopting that mindset of marriage. And so what this entails is having what I like to call having some talks. Have some talks with one another. Yeah. 3 important talks that I think should be had are, number 1, have a vision talk. Yeah. So talk about what you want your marriage to look like. What do you value? One of the things that we mentioned earlier was the fact that we set some values of things that we wanted our marriage to embody. Mm-hmm. So have some vision talk. What do you see yourselves accomplishing together? Yeah. What does family look like? Have that talk. Have some finance talks. Yes. That's obviously very, very key, very big for everyone. So, for us, I mean, we were conscientious about doing some practice budgeting, and just getting in the habit of building that muscle was just so key, because we knew that, hey, we just we weren't going to be having 2 separate pots of finances. We were going to be bringing them together, so we would have to learn how to operate them together. Have some talks on sexual intimacy. Yeah. Yes, that's big too. Understand and think about what that means for both of you. Right. And that's all of those things are very key. Yeah. And I mean, with regards to sexual intimacy, for us, we actually were able to get a book. It's called The Act of Marriage, that helped us
during our engagement time, just talk through some of those things that maybe we really hadn't talked through with anyone before, and who better than your significant other to be that you're gonna be intimate with in the future. So
right. And I think it's also worth noting that, of course, everyone is coming into marriage in different in different seasons. So, maybe one of you already has children.
Yeah.
And so, maybe you've already had that talk, or maybe, you might be older at the time when you're getting married. And again, that might be a case where you're already having some of these talks early on compared to maybe if you were younger getting married. So all in all, just begin to learn and adopt the mindset of functioning as a team, which is what we always talk about here on Marriage Inside Out.
Right. And I mean, when you're conversing, it's so important that when you're having those talks, trying to get on one accord, it's easy to get frustrated if there's a disconnect. Don't assume that you're going to be on the same page right away during those conversations. Right. But as a team, you're going to learn through the process and get on one accord to the best of your ability. So Exactly.
And then number 4 is to enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment together while you have it. It's interesting. Did a little research and found that there are some relationship counselors that actually find that the engagement period is actually a time when couples usually argue a little bit more often than usual. And it's because of some of the things that we already know about, right? You're planning, you're, preparing, you're having some of these conversations that you maybe never had before. And sometimes it can just cause some conflict and some rifts. But just remember to enjoy one another. Don't stop doing that. Don't stop going on dates. Make time also for things that don't involve planning for the wedding. Take some time away from your phones. Just continue to court one another, so to speak.
Yeah. And the 5th, we're going to bring back number 1, is to protect your peace. Now, everyone say it with me. Protect your peace. Okay? So to protect your peace, this is really the foundation of making sure that your engagement time is one that you can look back on and not feel overwhelmed by, to make sure that it is a time of growth. So continue to say no, just like we mentioned before, and make sure that you're focused on the end. And the end is far beyond that wedding day, right? The end is your marriage, your children, your legacy, your family. So continue to look beyond. If something comes up, you can ask yourselves, does this matter just for the moment? Will this matter in 5 years? Right. Is it okay to just let it go? Right?
Yep, exactly. Yep. Always go back to the why. Remember why you are getting married and keep the big picture in mind. That's what it's all about.
Right.
All right, friends, so here's our question of the day. If you are currently engaged, what's one thing that you have learned during your engagement process? Let us know in the comments. Also, if you are married, what's one piece of advice that you would give to engaged couples right now? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you enjoy this episode, go ahead and like, share, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and join us on any of our podcast platforms, and we will continue to stay connected. If you are interested in learning more and staying connected with Marriage Inside Out, you can head over to marriageinsideout.com. We have a course on setting and accomplishing your goals together that we're running monthly that we'd love to have you join in on.
Yes, and we want to thank you all so much again for tuning in with us. And until next time, remember, your marriage has a mission, and what the Lord has brought together, let nothing and no one separate. Love God and love one another, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.